All right, well, everybody, let me start by introducing myself. My name is Scott Buell. I'm the founder and CEO of Drone Legends. For those of you that know us, you know what we're all about. We teach kids how to be legendary through the magic of drones. We've got a great guest tonight. I'm super excited for this evening. I am going to be sharing some slides to kick this off and some videos as well. Let's start here. Everybody can see my screen. Give a big thumbs up. We can see it. So look, we haven't done these in a while. We used to do quarterly webinars. We had a couple of years ago, we had the great folks from Zipline Drones put us behind the scenes of their medicine delivery drone operations. That was incredibly cool to watch how they bring in all the materials, set out the drones off those giant catapults and launch pads. Was pretty neat. So we got to see that. Last year around the holidays, we had a NASA representative talk to us about the Ingenuity project on Mars, where they put a drone. For those of you that don't know, Little Ingenuity went up there in February of 21, and Little Ingenuity is still up there doing some really cool stuff with the Perseverance rover. This year, we have a special guest who I'll introduce in a moment. It is in line with bringing you guys the coolest, latest drone technology, and I think you're going to just love this one. So welcome to the Drone Legends 23 Spring webinar. I founded this company on the idea, the belief that inside every child lives a legend. What do I mean by that? I believe in this thing called a unique potential. And I think that every one of us has something really special that if we put our minds to it, we can achieve great things. I especially want our young children to understand that and believe in that at a very young age. When I flew my drone, many of you know my story, I would see children following me. It was like the Pied Piper. And I thought, well, with that kind of attention, what a tremendous opportunity we have to bring children into our world, the world of drones. We call it the magic of drones, and start to talk to them about STEM and engineering and career development and being legendary and chasing dreams. So that's why we're called Drone Legends and not something else, right? There's this legendary aspect to what we do. In order to bring this to the largest group of children, we knew we had to make something that empowered educators to bring it to their students. I'm an N of one. If it's just me, we can't bring the legendary experience to kids everywhere. Today, we're in over 200 schools around the US. We've got operations running in Australia, New Zealand, and most recently, Guam. It's 7 p.m. here tonight. I hope some of our Australian friends and our New Zealand friends are watching us tomorrow, right? Wouldn't that be cool? So our mission is to empower educators like many of you around the world to deliver this incredible STEM with Drones program to the children in your elementary school classrooms and after-school enrichment programs. And we do that in these incredible mission-based things, right? We're exploring Mount Erebus in the Antarctica. We're scanning the coastline in Maui for sharks. We're tracking the koala population in Tasmania. And many other things. What we're not doing is what we're going to be doing tonight, and that's maybe the next mission that we should be working on. And why? Because they're the future, and the future's right now. We talked about ingenuity and space exploration. Look, Mimi Ong and her team at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory defied the odds. They didn't even know if this thing was going to fly, let alone do all the great stuff it's doing up there on Mars. So she's an inspiration to young women coming into this space. I was just telling our guest that I was just out at one of our sites in Fresno, California. And what struck me was that at one of the school locations, of the 15 or so children participating in the program, all but 2 were girls. And they were flying, they were piloting, they were navigating, they were coaching, they were observing, they were building. And it was really cool to see that. And people like Mimi Ong are an inspiration for those young ladies. And so we're talking about precision agriculture and farming, not to keep bringing up Fresno, but Fresno is an agriculture state. I mean, county. That's what they do there. It's based on agriculture. When you come out of the airport, there's a John Deere tractor there. It tells you what that culture there is like in that community. It's agriculture. So drones in agriculture represent a tremendous opportunity for these children. Fighting fires, species restoration, the list goes on and on and on. It's endless. And this market is huge. I mean, I pulled this one most recently, but you can find them. The projections range from anywhere from 34 billion to this 134 billion. The bottom line is it's pretty big. right? So this commercial drone services space, whether you're an operator, an entrepreneur, an engineer, a programmer, you work for a company like a Verizon or something, the opportunity is tremendous for these young children to have legit career pathways in this space. It's a subset of a larger aviation pathway. And it's important that we bring this to these children now and let them see that this is real. And that's one of the reasons for tonight. We want you to take this back to your students and show them, look, we don't make this stuff up. This isn't fairyland. This is real stuff here. And so when you think about drones as a career, it's doable, it's reachable. And our guest tonight is going to talk about what that looks like. So that's a great segue. Tonight we have Tony Samaritano and his team he's the co-founder and vice president of Verge Aero. For those of you that don't know who Verge Aero is, a little teaser on the bottom right there. They do drone light shows, guys, and not just drone light shows. They were featured on America's Got Talent. If you guys saw the Biden-Harris inauguration, they were the ones behind the light show there. And what do I love about these guys? They went to the college my son's going to go to. Not that long ago. We're all here in the South Jersey area, so they're local. So I look at Tony, a young guy like Tony. You know, it's funny. I can talk about some of the older generation that's into the drone stuff, but when we got a guy like Tony here, who's a lot younger than I am, doing what he's doing with a great team of young guys, recently out of school, I get psyched, man. I get pumped at what he's doing. So I think before we introduce Tony, let's just start with a little something cool I want to share with you right now. And here we go. I think you're going to like this. Sit back and relax for just a few minutes, and we're going to talk to you all about Verge.
Anthony, Chris, and I met at the Electrical and Computer Engineering department at Rowan University.
What really brought us together was a passion for drone technology.
You're basically drone nerds.
Yes, we're drone nerds.
We were probably in the engineering building quite a bit more than everyone else.
Pretty much 24/7.
Working on code for the drones.
Up really late in a basement, drinking energy
By
drinks.
Stop trying to make us less cool, Chris.
No,
After we graduated from college, we were like, we need to do something special.
And that's how we found Mills.
My background is making different types of entertainment technologies. So in 2016, we formed Verge Aero.
Together, we wanted to create a new kind of light show with a swarm of drones, like high-tech fireworks. So over the course of the past 5 years, we've had to build this technology completely from scratch.
We've had very little money coming in. 3 of us had to move back in with our parents, but I think we're finally ready to show the world what we've got.
Tonight, the drones will be building these giant shapes in the sky. They're 300, 350 feet tall.
It's huge, it's bright.
It's spectacular.
3, 2, 1.
Wow.
That is amazing.
Excellent. All right. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool stuff. That is spectacular. It gives me the goosebumps, right? So, folks, I want to put Tony. I'm actually going to put you on spotlight. There you go.
Okay.
Everybody see Tony there. Everybody meet Tony, the person
Everyone.
that you just witnessed.
Yep. Big version of my face.
There you go, man. That's cool. Good stuff. So, Tony, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, who you are, where you're from, how you got started. Let's just start there. Give me the background real quick. Give me your
for sure. So I'm from Toms River, New Jersey, and went to Rowan University, where I met my two co-founders, and studied electrical engineering there. So like, especially like in the context of, STEM and everything, I was always the type of student, I was always a good student, but like, I actually didn't know that I liked engineering until pretty much I went to college, which was kind of funny. I saw Chris Francois on the call too, and he had a very similar story. We were always into computers. I didn't know what programming was. Didn't really matter. Like once I got to college, I just decided, I'll try engineering. That sounds good. And then I just ended up like deeply falling in love with it. It's just like, what's just incredible about engineering, specifically electrical and computer engineering, is you can create anything. We can program computers, we can build circuit boards, we can build these robots. And one of the coolest things that you just like kind of don't realize is what we write for code and the way that we program these computers. Like when our drones are flying, you have hundreds of drones in the sky, or even thousands of drones in the sky. It's like a little piece of you that's flying and telling a story. And that's just magic to me. But yeah, so after college, I built a drone with one of the co-founders, Anthony, and Chris was somewhat involved, but we were always good friends in college. And then we ended up building this drone completely from scratch. This was in like 2010, 2011, 2012. That was like before you can go to Best Buy and buy a drone or something. Right. So yeah, we built the hardware, we built the software, we made it fly. It was actually it was in that AGT, like in the initial part of it, there was in Rowan Hall, one of our drones like that we completely made just from scratch, actually flying. It was a pretty bad drone, like all said and done, it wasn't very good, but it was just the most amazing learning experience. So right after college, I worked at Boeing over in Philadelphia, working on the CH-47, the Chinook, and then ended up kind of like weaseling my way into this, into the R&D program at Boeing. It's called Phantom Works. And I got to work on some really, really cool heavy lift drones. So all electric, same thing, just gigantic quadcopters, hundreds of pounds. And that was really awesome. So this is like all around 2013, 14, 15. And that's like when drones actually really started to become a thing. Me, Anthony, and Chris kind of used that opportunity, saw the market opportunity, and like, what can we do? What kind of value can we add to the market? And we ended up realizing that we're actually pretty good at automating these robots to do things. So we started experimenting in the market, and we found that the entertainment market and the advertising market desperately wanted something new and cool. And we were able to provide that. And so 2016, we raised a little bit of money. We built a prototype. And then from 2017 till today, we've been building up the core technology and also taking the technology that we've built, doing our own shows like you saw on AGT or the Biden show, for example. But then we also take the technology that we build and we sell it to partner companies as well. So we have a huge network of people around the world who have actually purchased fleets of our drones. And the way that we see it, the way that we want to position ourselves as, we want to be, like just staying in aerospace. Boeing sells planes to airlines. We don't want to be the airline. We want to be Boeing. We want to be the technology provider and provide the best possible services and product to this brand new drone light show market. So I think that's kind of like it's kind of where we got to today, or where we are today. And, it's just building the business. It's a technology company. It's been exciting. So many great, crazy stories, and not for lack of hard work, I can tell you that.
Sure. Well, that's great. Thank you. Let me remove your spotlight on you and put you in speaker mode. So when we talk,
Sure.
we're doing that. So I love your story, by the way, from one kind of entrepreneur's journey to the other. Tell me, like, so when you guys are thinking about the choreography, so we looked at that, that's like art in the sky, right?
Mhm.
So from a technical perspective, that's cool on one side, but the actual choreography of it, like, where does that happen? Who does that?
That's a great question. Yeah, so I think it's also worth saying, like, there's a little bit of background in how these drone light shows work. It's something that surprises people. Like, you'll have people come up after a show and you're like, who's piloting all of these drones? You're like, no, that's not how this works. So one of the things that's really cool about these systems, and actually makes it scalable and prevents any kind of system-wide failure, is every single one of these drones thinks that it's flying by itself. It has no clue that other drones are flying with it. So although they are flying in a coordinated fashion together, they're not communicating with each other. They are purely just executing a path that is pre-programmed and put onto the drone before we launch the show. The drones actually do have the capability to talk to each other. There's definitely opportunity in the future to do more of like live shapes, but for the most part, that's completely unnecessary and adds like a lot of risk to it. Yeah. And then, what was it? Kind of building on that, like, what was the original?
Yeah. So who comes up with the design of what they're going to do?
Yes.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we have a really good team. We have creative designer. His name's Mason. He's doing a fantastic job. We've built up a team around him. So he's primarily the person doing it. Now then there's Chris Francois, one of my co-founders. He's the one who built the actual software. So what's unique about us is that, like, from the very beginning, it was like me, Anthony, Chris, and Nils kind of like, we're like we kind of just assumed that we would be the only people doing this. So we needed to build the technology in the first place to be scalable, meaning that like one person can program a lot of shows really quickly. So like a very small team can do a lot of shows. So like the way that other people program their drone light shows is they'll use animation software. So you're taking like individual points in an animation software and you're moving them around. That gets turned into waypoints and then uploaded to the drones. We took a completely different approach where we actually built our own software, where instead of saying, I want these 100 drones in these individual positions, and then they need to move from this shape to this shape, and this is how each one of those moves, we actually built a piece of software that does that all automatically. And what you do is, say if you want to build like a heart, for example, you'd actually import in what's called a spline. So it's actually like a line. Like if anybody's familiar with Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator, one of those programs, you just think of it with a pencil, you're tracing out a heart that creates a nice shape. You import that into our design studio. And then you just say, okay, I have 100 drones on my launch pad. I want you to go to the heart. I want this heart to rotate. And then I want the drones to land. So like to build 100 drone show, and I'm not joking, takes 5 minutes of time. And you just keep building on that. So like, that's how you take an individual component and do that. And it's also scalable. So say if, the client's like, oh no, I want 200 drones. It's like, that's no problem. We just change our launch pad from 100 to 200. We press render. 2 seconds later, we get a new show that we can then go fly. And that makes us like pretty unique, and also makes us really fast, and we can iterate really, really quickly. So our designer, Mason, he's just always pushing the limit on these things. So as these tools become quicker and faster, it just allows him to be more creative. So like, 2 years ago, the tools were good, but they're not remotely close to how good they are today. So like he would put in, say, like 12 hours into a design and you get like a pretty basic show. Now he'll put 12 hours into a design and it's like a world-class 3D morphing. It's just, they create absolutely beautiful stuff. And it's really all thanks to Chris. He's really the mind behind that software. Yeah. So
We got a comment. Somebody said Verge Design Studio is amazing. So much easier than anything than any other.
yeah, cool. Thanks. Whoever
Yeah, so
said that.
somebody's a fan of your design studio. Hey,
Was
so
it Chris? Chris, are you doing that? Or did you
no,
pump up
it's
your
Deb.
own?
Her name's Deb Toes.
Oh, Deb.
Yeah.
Hi, Deb.
There you go, Deb. Okay, you know Deb. All right. So,
Yep.
hey, I've got a million questions. Let me just stop with something you said there. So, what's the largest number of drones you've put at once? What's your record?
We did 1,070 in November of last year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. So yeah, it's really cool because like it's really just it ends up being a manpower problem. It's like that's a lot of robots to be managing. It's a lot of like we have to charge all those batteries. Think about that. It's like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like we have an entire. It's just it's wild.
Warehouse of batteries. So for those of you running the
Yeah.
Drone Legends program, you have a newfound appreciation for your little bank of Tello batteries, right? So
Mhm.
so they don't quite take up a warehouse. You've got about 10
Yeah.
of these little guys with 3 batteries a pop. You can fit them in a shoebox. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool. Hey, so let's talk about risk and airspace and getting, the permits and things like that. Like what does that look like? Do you have to deal directly with the FAA?
Yeah, because there's not really that many of us doing this. So there's pretty much one person in the FAA who's in charge of issuing the waivers for all the drone light show companies and individuals that are flying these things. And I'm assuming that there's enough familiarity with the Part 107 rules. But so in the Part 107 rules, you specifically can't fly more than one drone per person. So, but they do allow you to waive that. So our waiver allows us to both fly more drones with one person, so we can fly hundreds of drones per person.
Right.
And then also on top of that, the flying at night. There's a couple provisions that we've kind of worked with the FAA on, because obviously they need to be visible at all points in time. But then there's also the fact that you kind of want to surprise your audience. You want to turn all the lights off. You want to bring them all on. So there's ways that we worked with the FAA that they're comfortable with from a safety perspective that allows manned aircraft to work with us, and everybody knows what's going on.
Interesting. And what is the so kind of what's the most challenging aspect of what you guys do? It can be anything, whether it's running the business or whether it's the technology side of it or dealing with the regulations. What is kind of your biggest challenge?
That's a good question. So, I mean, at this point, this technology, the Verge technology has proven itself well enough in the US airspace that that's more or less, that's not something that we worry about anymore. We're just very strict on, especially our pilots, but then we also try our best to train anybody who has one of our fleets and like what our protocols are, what you should be looking out for, and really help them to get those waivers so they can actually start using their fleet. For us, because like we're in a weird spot. We're the only, at this point, the only commercially available company that's building everything from the hardware all the way up to the software, and then providing that whole technology stack. Others in the market are, buying drones from one manufacturer and then piecing together this software from another manufacturer and kind of mixing and matching stuff. Whereas we're more of a one-stop shop. So we believe that that's the right way to do it, because we're able to really control the entire technology stack. So if there was a problem with the drone, or even if there was a problem with the design software, we're able to address that entire thing and understand everything, and allows us to move really quick. Problem with that is you need a huge engineering team. So we've actually built up a pretty big engineering team here at Verge to work on the technology, to develop it further, to work on next generation things, et cetera. And it's really just balancing all of those requirements on a relatively small team. And we can pretty much do anything. So it's really picking and choosing what we work on next and what we focus on from an engineering perspective. And then you have, outside of engineering, then you have, just growing and scaling a business in a brand new industry. So it's so many challenges. It's the challenge. Yeah, it's really building up a business. That's the challenge right now.
Scale,
and I mean, it's always a challenge though. So like, it's a good problem to have, I think.
Yeah, and Becky, our marketing director here at Drone Legends, has just put a thing in the chat that please, audience, if you have questions for Tony, I'm sure like me, you probably have a million. This is super cool stuff. So let me ask while we're waiting for some people to chime in. So how does one get your light shows? So just do we hire you, right? So what's the process? Somebody goes and they say, we want a light show for something. And then they hire you out and you bring the staff and team, or are you trying to move a model more where others can run your show using your tech stack? How's that looking?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, because what we ultimately want to do is be the technology service provider. Like we do run our own shows, and we'll probably continue to run some of the like larger, higher profile shows. And one thing that's actually really cool about our company and our community of drone light show providers is that like it's very common for us to like we've built a lot of drones, but we don't own all of those drones. We actually own a relatively small number of drones. But when we have shows that, you need 1,000 drones for, or you need 800 drones for, or something like that, what we're able to do with this community of people who are using our system is kind of bring everybody in. So we'll have multiple fleets get mixed for a single show. And we find that to be really, really great to build the community and build up these new businesses who are trying to get off the ground, like literally and figuratively. Because they get a piece of the pie, right? So we want to be not only the technology provider, but the facilitator of the market. And yeah, I find that's pretty interesting. I don't know if that answered the question. I've already lost it.
Yeah, I think so. We've got some really cool comments. I love this. So we've got a question from Mark Kircher, who's hey Mark. He said, was the lost puppy at the end of the AGT show accidental?
Yeah, that one was fun. That was a little we solved that one. It decided to land a little faster than it should have.
Okay.
And when it like bounced off the ground, jumped up, and then it ended up landing like 30 feet away from the launch pad, which was like no big deal because you have a huge safety radius. Like nobody.
Yeah, so that was another question. Yeah. Like I'm curious, is like, so what have you had any mishaps? Do you have like, what's the accident kind of ratio? What happens when you have something happen? Have you had anything happen in the sky, or has it been more upon land or whatever?
Usually around land or right after takeoff, that's when you're going to have any potential issues. I would say it's actually it's exceedingly rare for anything poor to happen, right? One of the things that we really did with our system, just in terms of safety, is like we're super conservative on when we allow our drones to auto land, which is like a blessing and a curse. So like, for example, like if your battery gets too low, that's going to auto land. And sometimes what ends up happening, especially when you're in colder weather and you're at a higher altitude, is when the drone is asked to like do a really high thrust maneuver to climb to a higher altitude. If you're under the wrong conditions, even though your battery is like, let's say it's like 40% at that show, the voltage drops down and that will trigger a battery failsafe. So we'd rather err on that side of caution than not. But for the most part, it's like mishaps. Every once in a while, you'll have like a drone clip another drone, and but it's all within the safety radius. Anytime there's been a drone that have just hit each other for one reason or another, they'll either auto land or they'll come right down from where they are, and that's like we have a huge safety buffer, so nobody's ever at risk.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Hey, I've got a comment from Paul S. He's saying a good takeaway from your answer for those interested in this space. And this kind of gets to another question of what would you recommend for kids? This kind of interesting is there's all kinds of things people can do in this space. If you like to build things, you can make the drones. If you like to write code, you can create the software. If you like to organize people and be social, you can plan the shows. If you're an artist, you can design shows. The list goes on and on. It takes people with all kinds of interest to make this happen. That comes from Paul S. So I thought that's a really cool observation. Pretty cool. Alyssa's asking, how do you calculate the safety radius?
It's all done automatically. So obviously anywhere that the drones are flying over, that's clearly in the safety boundary. But then we actually do, it's all done in our design studio. The pilot actually doesn't really need to calculate anything because we are pre-programming everything. We know the exact flight path of every single drone. We also know the speed that those drones are flying at any given time. We actually derive the safety radius as like this big polygon shape that is actually defined by where the drones are flying. And that's so it ends up generally being like we need at least a 50, I think it's, yeah, a 50 or 75-foot buffer. I forgot off the top of my head, plus whatever our drone's altitude is and speed. So it's all performance based, which is really cool. So like, say if you're in a more like a smaller show, maybe it's like a, you know, for example, like a backyard, like birthday or something like that. You want your audience a little closer. In order to do that within the regulations, that just means that you're going to fly at a lower altitude and you're probably going to have a little bit less drones, smaller shapes or more confined shapes. And then that will allow that safety radius to be pulled in. And what, yeah, it's really cool because you can literally see what your safety radius is while the designer is designing on like Google Maps. And that makes it really easy for the operators to then go out to the field and know exactly where they need to station their VOs, where they need to potentially put up caution tape, et cetera.
Cool. So you do everything from inaugurations to backyard barbecues?
I mean, we don't do the back. Actually, no, I can't say that. Yeah, no, we've done a few backyard barbecues.
That's cool. That's really cool.
They're usually
so
for
anybody
fun.
looking for the next birthday party, you know where to
Yeah.
find Tony and his team. You can just people do micro drone backyard barbecues. Hey, so what is one of the most? Give me an idea of some of the most complex designs you've ever done. What's kind of stands out from you for complexity?
Yeah, at this point, I'm kind of like the wrong person to ask, but from what I've experienced, I mean, that 1,000 drone show was incredible. Oh my God. It was, yeah, you literally, like our designer programs the show. It was a 10 plus minute show with 1,000 drones with multiple, I think it was like 5 or 6 individual, like different effects. Yeah, and then like, oh yeah, Rice, yeah. So we did one for Rice University in Texas, and that one was gorgeous. It was like one of the first times that our designer Mason like really got to flex his muscles with some of the new features that we came out with, and they like the complexity goes up as it's really easy to like put one logo in the sky and then sparkle and turn into another logo and sparkle. But it's kind of like a slideshow. I think it's still amazing to see, but it gets really repetitive. That's super easy to do. But what's really difficult to do, and what we've really been tuning our tools for and really specializing in as also like a design, like we pretty much have our own design consultancy as well that we provide to our customers. It's like keeping even during the transition. So like you have like a 3D effect, it's telling part of the story, but how do you get the drones going from one effect to the other and have it still be entertaining where it's just not this amorphous sparkling? So yeah, this show in at Rice University was just absolutely incredible. There wasn't a moment in time where there wasn't something super interesting 3D. It's just awesome. Really, really awesome show.
That is cool. I know we've seen others like in Beijing, they had like, it looks like a guy running, right? Like you ever see that giant one over the building? And oh, here's Paul now sharing something.
Oh yeah.
Everybody see
that? It's a book.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah. Oh man. I think in the beginning of it, there was there's a lot of effects in this that are just gorgeous.
This is cool.
Oh yeah, the owl. I don't remember where that is. I think it's in the beginning. Yeah, it's in the beginning of it. You go to maybe like 2 minutes.
That's incredible though. Look at that. Look where you are up there. That's pretty amazing.
A little past that, we did like a geometric thing, which was really cool because I was like in this courtyard. Yeah, right there. Click on that. I think this is.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we had this like the archways, which was a architectural piece, part of the university, and their mascot's an owl. So we had this, you know, like you can see the little 3D.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then what it does, and what is surprising to the audience, is morphs into this enormous. I mean, that's like a 300-foot wingspan. It's like building a 747 in the sky really quick. It's just magic. It's just absolute magic.
That is incredible. That's incredible. Look at that. It's hard. It's one of those things where, you know, what comes to mind is as spectacular as that looks right now on the screen, It's like you ever been in like I know I was in Phoenix once and the moon was ginormous in the sky and I took a picture of it and sent it to somebody and said, look how awesome that is. They're like, yeah, it looks like a little moon. You kind of have to be there. Like when you're there standing, I mean, look at the size of that thing relative to the building underneath it. It must be like breathtaking when you're literally standing there watching this thing, to your point, a 300-foot wingspan.
Yeah.
Let's just take your breath away.
Oh, it absolutely does. Yeah, no, I mean, you're spot on with it. Like if I'm assuming most people here haven't seen a drone show, it's a completely different experience. The videos will never do it justice. I mean, it's just like pull up any video of fireworks. And it's like, cool, they're fireworks. But when you're there, it's like, oh my God, they're fireworks. It's just a completely different, it builds in the emotion and everything. And that's one of the things that's so unique about these drone light shows, that you can either play with fireworks, like the Biden president-elect show that we did. We had fireworks that were like loosely cued with us, but we've done follow-on shows with fireworks where you're using the drones to tell a story because they can be detailed, they're precise, you can spell things out. But then when either they're doing the transition or just integrating it into those effects, you fire off a few shells, and when they blow up at the right time, put that with music. It's just, it's an experience that you can't put into words.
That's amazing. I'm looking at some other questions and I'm looking at time. Okay, we're good for you. So let's talk about, this is something from students. So my students fly drones autonomously and manually. This is a great question. I think, Mark, this is a good one. Most students prefer to fly manually, right? We have a manual component in our curriculum because we know there's this manual component and then there's this autonomous component. And our curriculum does that. Fly, code, boom. So the question is, they love to fly manually, saying it's more exciting. Obviously, autonomous flight is key to your shows, and autonomous flight is important for other drone applications. This is coming from a coding nerd, Mark. I know it. What is your message to students who don't think autonomous flight is cool? Mark, I love you, man.
Oh, that's it's a great question because it is fun. I mean, flying drones is just fun. You have control of a literal thing that's flying. Like it doesn't really get much cooler than that. When you're the person who programs them, it's completely different. Think of it, it's more like, and like, I don't have kids, so it's loose for me, but I can think of it from like a parent's perspective. Mm-hmm. Like you're allowing these things to go out into the world and execute these things themselves, like these missions themselves. Yeah. So for me, when I'm watching these fleets of drones flying, I know that there's a piece of me and I'm like watching them do their thing where I don't have control at that moment in time, but that's okay because they're doing a great job. And like honestly, it kind of feels like a parent-child relationship.
That's cool. What a great answer. Yeah. I think that's awesome. And I know that from watching the kids, when we do the autonomous thing, I always love when they've spent all this time mapping and figuring out distances and heights and gauging, and then going into the block code, and it's Blockly based, and they're kind of nailing that. And then I love watching them hit that launch button and just stand there like, all right, come on. Did all my hard work pay off? Right? Like there's a payoff, right? And I think that's what you're getting to, is it's like, let this little guy out in the world, and is it doing what I asked it to do? Right. And when it nails it, there's this real sense of accomplishment. I watch it on these kids' faces all the time of just like, what a sense of achievement that I spent all that time programming this thing to go off and do it on its own. And it did what I asked it to do. Wow. Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's a different level of excitement. I mean, to me, and to the team who's programming this, I mean, we get so much enjoyment, and it's beautiful to watch. It's a new art form. So we're just happy to be a part of it. And then, that's it. You're watching these things effectively that you've created go do their job and do a good job at it. And it's super rewarding.
Yeah, great. Hey, here's some more questions. And this is more of a business one, right? I love these because business is great. And I know you talked a little bit about the scale and about the challenges of growth. And so when you think about drones as a career, what would you recommend for kids interested in getting into drones as a career? And maybe part two to that is, what do you wish you'd known before you got into this? With hindsight's crystal clear, right? So there's kind of two questions there. Maybe start with, What's your advice for people looking to get in? And maybe that also will dovetail into what do you wish you'd known?
Yeah, that's a really good question. There's like 1,000 ways to answer it. I'll speak from my experience, and kind of like I said from the beginning, I didn't realize that I loved engineering and loved programming until I actually started doing it in college. So for me, like one of the things that I really wish when I was younger, I just learned how to program. I would have been light years ahead of where I am, especially when we started, but even today, just having like all of that experience and understanding how you tell a computer to do what you want. That I wish I did earlier. Let's see, like to dovetail off of that, why don't you rephrase it?
Yeah. So what do you recommend for kids getting into drones as a career? Any career advice?
Yeah. Okay. So, well, let's see. God, there's so much to it. I find, and like, I don't really be curious, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how we got to where we are today. Like I can definitely speaking for the co-founders, and I think most people in our company, what drives us forward every day is just to solve these new challenges. So whether that challenge is, it could be like 3D mapping, maybe that's something that you just want to nerd out on. Be okay nerding out on something, because what we do specifically well, and I think what has brought us success has been that we're never scared to keep going deeper and deeper and deeper into the subject. So for people just starting out, I think you want, especially in drones and robotics in general, you probably want to kind of explore the space. Like maybe you just like piloting them. Maybe you just like, maybe you want to program them. Maybe, so there's a bunch of different avenues to take. I would say if you're starting out, try a little bit of everything. Just there's always a very good first step to get into them, whether it's like for programming, whether it's learning how to use Python on some web interface. Like you'll start programming, you get a hello world, and like that's great. Whether it's drones, get a cheap little drone with a controller, start flying it around and just sampling the space. And then what we ended up doing is just like really quickly identifying the things that we were more passionate about. I found I was more passionate about the construction of the drones initially, but then the software and programming it, that's like where I really started to fall in love. And that I just went down, for was it 15 years now, just down a rabbit hole of this, just programming hardware and everything. And drones and robotics are just so fun because you get to play around with something physical. It's not just on your computer, or it's not something just like remote.
Hey, that's a great segue. Can you talk about physical? What do you got with you today?
Yeah.
You show somebody?
One of my, here,
Look
let
at
me
that
turn
thing.
my blur off. So
Yeah,
we can
look at
actually
that.
see it.
That's cool.
Yeah, this is one of the X1s. It's actually a pretty
X1.
beefy drone. Yeah, have its lid off. I can give you guys a little tour of it. Yeah, so what we have on top here is this is the GPS here. So that's its own standalone board. And then we have a flight controller inside. This might look familiar to some drone people. It's a cube orange. And then everything else other than the GPS and that orange cube that's inside is all our design, including the airframe. So like what we ended up doing, because this, we built this in 2018, and we knew that the platform, this is more of a platform device, where we knew it was going to change over time, but we didn't want to rebuild the entire drone from scratch every single time we wanted to make a change. So one of the things that we ended up doing was we ended up designing, it's going to be like hard to see in here, but we have like these, let me try it. Like there's a card here.
Okay.
And then if I try and like, there's 3 cards in a row. So what we ended up doing was creating this very flexible design, hardware design, where we can plug and play these modules as we needed. So as the design changed from 2018 to 2019 to 2020, it's pretty much stayed the same over the past like 2-3 years. But like while we were doing very fast iterations, and by doing that, creating that really flexible hardware design, we were able to iterate and try new things really quickly. And just then, instead of building an entire new drone, we would just pop in a new card and then we'd have new features. So yeah, that's the X1. It's it's
Cool.
like I said, it's pretty beefy. It's a
It is pretty beefy. Yeah.
yeah.
They look so nimble and, graceful
Yeah.
up there in the sky. And it's this kind of cool piece of like black carbon
Yeah.
tech, right? And
Yeah.
it's just bottom lit. There's no top side. It's just the bottom. That's what we're seeing in those videos is a bottom light.
Yeah, you're just seeing this diffuser
That's the
here.
light. And
Actually, I
that's
have another one over here that has the lid off, or the bottom lid off. So you can see. Yeah, we have like, this is the bottom part. So
sure.
yeah. So yeah, there's the LEDs. We
Those
actually
are the
made this
LEDs,
modular
right?
as well, which is cool. Yeah, and then ESC is, it's pretty basic board. It just distributes the power around and then holds the payload itself, which is this white PCB here.
That's it. Right. Yeah, that's cool.
Yep.
And then we've got, how does the new design help with landings? Does it help something with help with liftoffs and landings? Does that,
Which part?
the new design, how does that new design help with liftoff and landing? Is there
Oh, no, I mean, there's nothing really to it.
Right.
Yeah, no, it's
those are just the legs, right? Yeah.
yeah, just the legs. And we actually ended up designing these. I mean, it's super hard to tell in the video, but these are actually plastic and removable. Like if I pulled this out, we can put different ones on. So like one of the things that breaks the most when we're going from show to show is the legs. And it's usually because somebody steps on a drone. So having that as like a super easy replacement part, like there's a lot of like cool little features that we added to it in terms of replacement and maintainability. It's something that's really key to keep the fleet healthy.
You just got me thinking about, so your show, so battery life's always an issue, right? You talked a little bit about battery and air and where you are in relation to but what are your battery life on one of those? Like what do you, on average, like what's your average battery span? Because that obviously limits how long your shows can be, right?
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, the thing will hover for 20 minutes on a brand new battery. If you plug in a battery and fly, it'll sit there and hover for 20 minutes. So it's not a crazy amount of time. It's also, just the nature of the design. It's a super beefy, heavy drone.
Sure is.
It also needed to be relatively compact. So like the props could probably be like maybe a ½ inch or inch larger, really, but and that would give us more efficiency. But we ended up opting for a little bit smaller of a prop, which is a little less efficient, but for density and packing, when we need to ship these things, that actually helped out a lot. So just striking that balance was important. So pretty much what we say is like a max flight time of 15 minutes under very specific conditions. Like one, your batteries aren't plugged in that long. Two, you're at sea level, it's warm because light lithium polymer and just batteries like to be warmer. So your capacity actually rises with the temperature. So like that's like absolute max. And when the drone starts to get to 15 minutes of flight, like the battery is going to start getting really hot and you'll start to see auto landings more frequently in the fleet. But with that said, what we've found in like, you would think that a longer show is better, but that ends up not being the case. Like what we found, some of our best, most impactful shows were 8 minutes long, and it's kind of just an attention span thing. It's
welcome
like
to the TikTok era.
Yeah, exactly. It really does. But there's also the component of like, if you're jam packing, like say you have let's just say you have a 15-minute flight and that has 10 effects in it. And like you're limited by how much your designer can put out, like your creative designer can put out. So take that, compress it down to 7 minutes. Now everything's moving faster and it feels more dynamic and you're not bored ever. Like that's the thing that you really need to focus on when you're designing these shows, is that there is no point in time where you feel bored. I know, like, I haven't designed shows in a while, but like I was kind of the one doing it for the first few years. And I would sit there, design some components of the show, and then play it forward. And then I'd just watch it on the screen because we have a full 3D previs of it. And I'd just be like, okay, I'm bored. And like, that's when I knew to transition to the next thing. And just, what we found is true that like our most impactful shows have been less than 10 minutes. So that even that 15-minute flight time isn't a problem at all in
Great.
reality.
Fast-paced, tight, choreographed, exciting, right? Cool.
Exactly. And people go into like a time warp. Like there's been multiple cases where we've had like a relatively short show, like an 8 or 9 minute show. And then you talk to the audience after and they're like, oh my God, how was that like 25 minutes? Like, no, not even close. Because people, if you can entertain them, you just, the comprehension of time kind of just goes away and you're in it. But as soon as you make people bored, now it's dragged out. And that's actually not good.
It's not, no. And I'm looking at our time. Oh yeah. So somebody asked, do you run full dress rehearsals or do you rely on the simulator or both?
That's a great question. I mean, we used to, when we started, we used to say that we absolutely needed a dress rehearsal. It's better to have a dress rehearsal than not. But at this point, it's kind of just building confidence earlier. We have like a really decent simulation, like both at the design phase, all of the paths that are put out of the designer are already simulated in a physical based simulation. And then we also have, like, especially during testing and development, we have full simulators where we can run everything in software, we can run everything in hardware. And it's really just building up that confidence in the flight paths that we develop. Can the drones fly them? Once you get to a certain level of confidence and that you test it on enough shows, I would say that 80% of the shows that we don't do a dress rehearsal. We just show up, make sure the drones are healthy and fly.
Cool. And finally, what's next? What do you guys, what can we expect from Verge Aero moving forward? What's on your plate?
Yeah, it's building the community. That's the most important thing for us. The more people who are using our tech, obviously the better for us from a business perspective, but we really are focused on turning drone light shows into this really cool intersection between technology and art. That's kind of the thing that drives us. Like we want to be not only the experts in the space building everything, but we want to make, use drones for good. Like that has always been our motto and really what we've been trying to strive for. And I think we've done a fair job at it so far. So it's really just building on that, building on the community, creating better tools, making things easier for people to use. So ultimately it's going to be like so everybody knows drone shows are extremely expensive. They're like really expensive at the moment. Just rough numbers, it's like your average drone show is probably like $50,000 for a 10-minute flight. So yeah, it's a lot. And like a comparable fireworks display is going to be like $15,000 or $20,000 for that. Now, I think drones have a better value proposition. I think they're more entertaining in general. So like, I think that drones will always have a little bit higher of a price point than your average fireworks display, but we still do need to bring the overall price of how much it takes to put on a drone show and bring that down. So that's really our mission. It's all technology. There's a lot of new technologies we're developing, a lot of new software, things to just make things easier, faster, and cheaper to use. And then we'll start to see this market really, really open up, and hopefully there'll be a drone show everywhere in every city, especially like 4th of July, right?
And dog lovers around the country and around the world will bless you for it.
Exactly.
Pets aren't hiding under the beds from all the explosions.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Tony, you have done, this is amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for having me.
This is what it means. Students that are watching this, faculty that are working with your kids. Tony is exactly what we talk about every day in the classroom, and his team. They're doing great stuff. Drones for good. I love that. That's a great way to sign off, is that we can look at this as drones for good, and truly an inspiration to the students coming up in this space, and maybe even in getting kids interested in the space that aren't currently. So thank you very much for your time tonight, Tony. I really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing some great shows from you and your team.
Awesome. Yeah. Remember, everybody, stay curious. Just follow what you're passionate about. So.
That's right. Be legendary, as we like to say. Yep. Excellent. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. Everybody take care. Have a great evening. Bye-bye.